Hey everybody, so the room is up and I I'm doing other things. I was trying to send off a resume. I had to fix my bath faucet. I'll tell you what, being looking for work here while I own a house is way less nerve-wracking than renting one. I mean, when you rent one, you never know, your landlords might want to sell it or come by or anything. Or if something happens in the house, I'm in the situation of, well, am I saving money? Or should I fix someone else's house? Should I bug my landlord? And it's just stupid. Landlords are stupid. I don't like the landlord idea. It's pretty unworkable. But anyway, so, but now it's just, well, I went and of course I'm buying stuff on credit card because I'm going to float them payments, but till I get a job. But so I was up late last night. I woke up fairly late today. And so I'm down here to work on resumes and send out a resume. Going to apply to company I'd very much like to work for. Seems like there's a lot of work. I mean, so far, looking at companies I'm specifically interested in, there's programming jobs. It's a weird kind of market, though. Everybody's always supposed to be worried. But oh, hey, somebody's here already. Anna C. Do you want to say something, Anna C?
Hello,
Hello.
nice to meet you.
Nice to
I'm
meet you too.
from Brazil. I joined your hangout
Hmm.
to practice English. Is it okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, usually it takes people. Usually it's monologue here for a while before people show up. So you were like right away. So have you watched the Hangouts before, or just happen to notice this on G Plus or something?
No, I've never watched your hangout before, but I think the topic is interesting.
All right.
You
Well,
know,
thanks.
yes, and since it is in English,
Yeah.
I decide to give it a try.
Well, you're welcome. We usually get a big group in here, and you're welcome to chime in. We talk about all kinds of subjects. Right now, I was blabbing about that. I'm looking for work. I had a job and I'm contracting, but so I'm kind of used to looking for work a lot the last couple of years. But this one was supposed to go on longer. But be that as it may, I've also just bought a house, and I was talking about how I feel better being out of work with my own house that I owe on than in somebody else's house that I owe rent on. So, but anyway,
Oh,
okay, feel free to chime in if you want. But I'll also just continue with some of the opening things that are the agenda potentially, though I'm always open to people railroading the agenda and talking about other things because it's a conversation. But I was going to talk about um, more about this social justice warrior stuff and how I notice a very similar thing happening on the right and the left right now. If you don't accept some conspiracy theory of theirs, like Hillary's assassinated 30 people and stuff like this, they will come back and go, what, you think, people in power don't, do terrible things? It's like, no, I know they do. As far as I'm concerned, the perfect epitome of uh, how history works, how politics works, how the international geopolitic works is Machiavelli's The Prince. This is an epitome. This is how things run. So I grew up being told and knowing that. And the thing is, I know conspiracies from history that actually for sure happened. I know.
yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I agree there are some conspiracies everywhere. Um, Here in my country, the previous president was impeached.
Right.
The same
You said
political
Brazil, right?
party. Yes,
Brazil?
Brazil.
Yeah. What chaos? Yeah.
Yes.
What do you think
The
about that?
same. Um. They are very corrupted because they can get along with those things. The fact that she was impeached will not change these kinds of things.
Well, was it legit?
Um,
Her impeachment didn't sound legit necessarily. Do you think it was legitimate? Her
of course,
impeachment, it sounded a little bit. Yeah.
no, it was, um, it was, she was supposed to pass the money for the public banks,
Right.
but she was not doing that. She was making up the economy, you
Right.
know,
Uh-huh.
and it is legitimate. She says it was a coup d'etat, but I don't agree. And
Right.
there were scandals and a lot of schemes in her government,
Yeah.
kickback schemes and things
But
like that. And
what about the group that is is taking over though? Are they any better? Or I've kind of heard that it was infighting in a corrupt system, just like seems everybody has, but it's infighting. You know what I mean? So even if it was legitimate, the people that are attacking her might be doing the same thing, and they just want to get in there. But you sound like you do agree that legally, she had to be impeached for what she was caught at, right? That would be separate from if the people who are in power next also have problems, right? So that's interesting to me because I've been reading about this, and I don't. I form opinions because I'm paying attention, but I mean, I don't really know. I have no frame of reference for this kind of thing. So, isn't there kind of a power vacuum now, though? Nobody else is really. There's not a
uh
strong.
yes, there is a power vacuum, and the guy who is in charge now, um, Michael Temer, he already stated that he's not going to do anything,
Uh huh.
and of course, corruption won't stop because of it. Um,
So the person that took over would be what? Was somebody else in her party, or was it a vice
yes,
president kind of a
device.
person?
Device.
So, and he's saying he isn't going to run for reelection,
Yes, he's not going to run for
right? So, what do you
re-election.
think he's
So
trying to do? Just settle things down and maybe is he trying to deal with any of the corruption, or what do you think he's doing then? If he's on purpose being what we would call a lame duck, a leader that can't get reelected in the term of office before they leave office, and there's various things those people sometimes want to get done that might not be very politically, um, they're not might not be very political, right? So sometimes people clean up corruption, sometimes people do a bunch of last minute corruption. So, I mean, what do you think? If you think that she did need, you say that she did need to be, that was fair for her to be impeached, and this is an associate of hers. Uh, do you think he's just continuing the corruption, or what do you think the purpose is of him leading and not wanting to run again and actually saying he wouldn't?
um, I believe he's not going to run because he's unable to fix the problems that we are going through now, and also because he's going to take advantage. You know,
Mhm.
he he doesn't want to run again. Um, I think he's in a comfortable position now. He can get some benefits and things like that, and then
Right,
he he won't have to take any responsibility.
right. Yeah, well, it sounds like then that, yeah, he's probably going to try to sew things up so that by the next election, the party isn't too damaged to run again. And I guess he's being associated with her. He knows that there's no point in trying to hold on to the basically to the current presidency. Interesting. So, as a Brazilian, then how we have such crazy politics all over. Like right now in the U.S., we got this Trump thing, and it's making us all crazy, but it hasn't really affected things. Emotionally, people care, and there's that kind of chaos. But economically, the jobs that were here, 6 months ago, are still here for the time being and stuff. So in that sense, is it how chaotic is this politics making actual, everyday life in Brazil, or is it just, politics goes on stage, but is there any economic chaos or problems like that because of this?
Do you mean economic problems because of what's going on in the US or?
Yeah, no, no. So with your own political, well, that's an interesting question, but no, let me just summarize. So with the political, having impeachment, that's a big thing. On the other hand, it's just a part of democracy, but it's a big deal. I'm curious, do you think it's affecting Brazil in any negative long-term way, or is it just a scandal that's going to come and pass? You know what I mean? Has there been any effect uh, of just on
Well,
regular life in Brazil other than politics?
I believe that it's been affecting us positively because
Hmm,
um, when she was impeached, she already had ruined our economy. We were going through a recession, and
right,
the market was the stock market was how can I say, a bear market,
right,
and now uh, the stocks are going up. So I think um, the fact that she was impeached uh, gave us more credibility,
right.
and foreign investors are more interested in investing here. The the oil rig company that she had the scandal, Petrobras, the stocks had dropped, you know,
Right.
and now people have been investing. It
Right. And
went
and
up.
Brazil has had a strong economy for the last few decades overall, right? So you expect a strong economy. You're not uh, really probably used to a leader that isn't maintaining your economy, right? Isn't that true? You guys, my understanding
Yes,
is Brazil has a hugely strong economy overall.
we had, uh-huh, we are a very rich country,
Right.
but now our currency is not good. You
Right.
know, it was strong. It was like the
Yeah, I
dollar.
did hear about that, but I don't know what's causing the current problems. I mean, I know there'd been a lot of development from the '90s on and stuff, but what's the area of the recession? Is it energy
I believe
related or
that
what?
it was the deficit in our
Right,
trade,
right,
and also the fact that the government has no money.
right,
You know,
right. Deficit spending, that makes sense. That's how a lot of wealthy countries get in trouble.
uh-huh. And also the government has no money. The public banks,
Yeah,
uh, they had to lend money. You
right,
know,
right.
and
So I assume this was a situation like we have around the world, probably. They became overextended, and then we had the international economic crisis 8 years ago, and that rippled and hit people at different times. But basically, um, that's the problem. If you've borrowed a bunch of money and then you can't finish projects, and then things come crashing down until it gets settled. And it is important. I mean, I'm a philosophical guy and human rights and social justice, but I also the first thing you do need in a leader is a competent management, and it makes all the difference between an economy that's shrinking 5% or growing 5%. So yeah, it makes a big difference. Just the expert, the stuff about the economy that I admit I don't know. To have someone managing that well, and having debt at the right time and not the wrong time, and understanding where the global economy is going. But yeah, I'm sure a big part of it is just the whole global there was a huge global recession, and in a way we did very well then as a world than in the past, where this kind of thing would ripple into a 20-year depression. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, interesting. So you mentioned about good old Trump there. So you watching American politics?
Ah, yes.
What do you have any comments there on
Uh-huh.
what do you think? What do you think?
Well, my take on it is that the economy in the world has been more and more globalized, and on the other hand, there is a growing nationalism, you know, because people are way too afraid of immigrants.
Yeah,
You know, it's happening in many places, not just in the U.S. In Hungary, with Viktor Orban, in France with Marine Le Pen, and the Brexit
yeah,
as well. You know,
yeah,
and I think it's a global fear of the immigrants. But
yeah,
to be honest, people are wrong about it because uh, some countries that voted against the Brexit, they benefit from the immigrants. They are not aware of it, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, no, well, I mean, I think that we don't talk about things that are known, like the fact that the UK would have a dropping population, which capitalism cannot handle. There might be economic systems that could handle that. Maybe austerity would work if there's less people, but that's not how it works. You need a growing economy and you need entry-level workers, and without the immigrants to the UK, they have all sorts of other reasons for it to fail. Sorry, I just noticed we got there you go, napalm. So yeah, so what about, I think that's very astute, and I hate to see it that way because I know that's going on in the United States. I believe the Brexit, and I see a lot of European stuff, but then sitting over here in the US, I see that yeah, there's a lot of anti-immigrant rhetoric and fear in Germany and France, but they still take in tons of them because they're willing to risk it. So I think that's it's hard for me to tell that that's not balanced out. On the other hand, you got Sweden and Denmark and stuff, places like this that are getting more and more anti-immigrant, and certainly the UK and the Brexit was obviously about the immigration thing. The money side of it made no sense whatsoever. Sovereignty issues really didn't, they might be a grain of truth in the long run about that, but there certainly was nothing imminent about that. So, um, yeah, that it would be a worldwide thing. Geez, I hate to admit that that's true, but it must be true. So in Brazil, you see this kind of thing right now, nationalism.
No, 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 no. Actually, I don't understand because we support the immigrants.
Yeah,
We have a lot of people from Haiti in the north of my country,
yeah,
and it takes a toll in the government. We don't have money for our own population. The
yeah.
health public system is full of flaws, and we don't have condition to take care of those people who sometimes are underqualified. They don't have any kind of specialization. They they are not going to help us to boost our economy.
Well, so here's the thing about that. Now, one question is, I would assume that Brazil is sees itself as an immigrant nation like the United States does. I mean, all of the nations in America uh, have that common history. I don't know culturally how much that's celebrated versus other ways of looking at your national history, but so having said that, or just that's a question. I'm curious what your take on that is. But the just in general, unskilled workers are useful, right? And especially since skilled workers have to do those jobs if the unskilled people are not available. The college graduates will not find a college job and they will be forced into these very necessary commodity jobs. So what you need to make use of immigrants like that that are don't know the language, maybe aren't skilled, or even if they are, the lack of the language makes this the same effect to the Brazilian economy. What you need is factories. You need factories. You need farms that pay well. I would say farms, but the problem with farms is evidently nobody's ever figured out an economic model that isn't poverty based. But certainly we have with factories. So if you have a manufacturing base which you need to restore to get out of recessions, or not restore, but you know what I mean. That's you need 20% more factories and some exports to ship those products places. Those immigrants can work in those factories. So I think people, I am very pro-immigration, um, including refugees, including possibly infiltrated groups. I really don't care. This my country I live in, as I see it, my nationalism is that, for over half our history, or for over 100 years, maybe it's not half now, but about half, to get to be an American citizen, a U.S. American citizen, you just had to get here. And that's how I basically think it should be right now. I don't see any reason that a human being should has to be kept out. There's a lot of empty space still for them to be in, and we have jobs that need to get done. And if you don't have a skill, well, I'm for teaching you a skill, but who are we fooling? Don't we need to make shoes and shirts and baby baskets and plastic bags? And who the fuck's supposed to oh, excuse me, but who's the fuck supposed to make all that stuff? Doctors and lawyers? So I don't think there's any problem with unskilled people and even unintelligent. Everybody, there's a place in our vast network of our society for absolutely anybody of any skill level and intelligence. If they're willing to be productive, then they can be productive. And our societies are failing because we think that a guy with a 75 IQ should just pull himself up by his bootstraps and go find something productive. Well, guess what? Finding something productive on your own requires intelligence. So if you have somebody that isn't that intelligent, yeah, society should make sure we get him to a place that needs someone to do a job that doesn't take a lot of intelligence, of which there's a fucking shit ton. So anyway, hey, how you doing, Napalm? You always got to say something to make sure we know if your mic is working. I could always go into chat here. There we go.
Maybe it's those headphones. Maybe those headphones are messing it up.
I got you. What? You sound fine now. What? Did you think you weren't muted before?
Yeah, I got like my normal headphones broke, so I'm like alternating between two different pairs because one pair, like it seems to work with the onboard microphone, but one pair doesn't. But that pair is louder.
Uh,
So
oh, I
there's
see
some
what you're saying. Yeah,
like
what
you were
I always
saying.
do is these USB things now, they always have little or volume controls on the cord. And I'm fucking
Yeah, but
always
that
knocking
the
that because I
problem
never
is like
use it. I
I'm a
forget it's even there.
destructive person. Like I break USB mics so often. Like
Oh,
it's like
totally.
4 to 6 months, and
I'm
they're
so
broke.
glad these fuckers are down to $10 and $15 because they're about as bad as sunglasses. Not quite as
Yeah,
bad, but they last me about 6 or 8 months usually, and I'm buying the cheapest, but a Logitech.
and I've like
This one, Plantronics,
duct taped
I
them,
really like it. I think this might be
like
a cheap
because
brand that's good. Plantronics.
like I've noticed with like especially the Logitechs, the place where it always breaks is that middle bit with the fucking volume control. So like I would always tape up my wires so they
Yeah.
wouldn't move around too much.
Well, mine is
Rip
always in the
powder.
back. Mine get stretched and pulled at the back of the computer where I put them in, and that's where mine I think usually go because usually they just stop working and I can't tell. But when they go and you can wiggle it, kind of a thing, it's
Yeah.
always back there. And that's shitty engineering because that is where, of course, wired things want to break. And this is Logitech. It's got to be intentional and planned obsolescence. Probably taping it up would make sense. On the other
Um,
hand, when I go in there, I should stop buying them actually. Well, I did this time. I bought this other brand I never heard of, Plantronics, and I think it's fine. So
But
still
going
hasn't
back
lasted a year.
to the people like more societal acceptance for low
Oh
tier
yeah.
jobs. That's what pissed me off with like Occupy Wall Street. Not with them, but with the bankers. Was like that one fucker who threw out all of the fucking like work forms for McDonald's. And it's like, you probably go home and threaten your fucking kids by being like, if you don't go to college and get into debt for the rest of your life, you'll be working at McDonald's.
Right.
So don't fucking use that like job as a threat and then be like, you should get this job. Why are you whining? Because you're in fucking college debt.
Yeah, you know, an interesting thing, so for me is like, so I've worked as a programmer my entire life through college and everything. I only had like uh, 3 different jobs besides that. And and so I
Sorry.
started working before I had a degree, and then I got a philosophy degree. And because of my resume, I was able to keep working at it. Now, if you don't go to college for computer science, you're going to have a hell of a time getting a job. However, these fucking people that are graduating computer science degrees, every school still teaches something different. It's as if every school was teaching medicine back when the common approach was leeches. It's like, so it's chaos. They're not really teaching that great of stuff. And the bottom line is, you could teach yourself, a person that's skilled and interested in it could teach themselves programming, and they don't need to go to college. The college is not adding anything that they couldn't say, go take the classes after they knew
Yeah,
how to
like
program and get a master's in it.
you easily get programming books. Like they are not hard to get.
And online, there's good video things, and also it's getting easier and easier, and there's free open source software. I had to pirate the compilers and stuff when I was a kid, so it's very doable, but it's harder to get a job. Now, it was easier for me to get a job back then because there weren't as many degrees, and all the computer degrees were working on, for the Department of Defense and shit, and so, and also you had war
Or
games and
maybe
stuff
business.
where big businesses, I could tell you, okay,
Yeah, like maybe
banks,
banks.
banks, hospitals, Department of Defense,
Yeah,
science-related
retail wasn't
stuff
using computers back
like
then.
like geology, but only oil prospecting. So there were these kinds of things, and you had to pay a lot, and you knew you had to pay a lot, and they were big companies that wanted to do it, and so they weren't around. And then also, of course, kids, knew computers, and adults didn't. It was a meme, war games. The 15-year-old hackers, and so I benefited from that and was able to, actually get paying work at 15 and 14. And we had, in Boulder, the down at the Computer Resource Center where they taught, businessmen how to use their Apple, it was being taught by 13 and 14-year-olds. Hysterical situation. And these are classes you're paying $1,000. Like nobody would do that right now. So, and I was the right age for that, so I lucked out. But the point is, you could do the same thing today, even easier, and be a better programmer, having taught yourself, but it'd be harder to get a job. So that's not right. We should have a way for things that are like music. You could go to college for music, and for certain things, you will want to do that if you're going to play in an orchestra or stuff. There's a lot of technical things they'll want you to know. However, obviously, we don't expect that from our musicians, and pretty much all of our popular musicians, they didn't do that. And that's good, because if you can do the music without the help of 4 years of education, good for you. Now, can you do that and be a medical doctor? Well, no, there's safety issues. Can you do that and be there's a lot of things you can do that, and computer programming being a lucrative one, it's kind of silly that you can't, but of course people
Well,
do.
you
And
know
how do
what I
they
mean? Like a
do it?
woo-woo doctor. You're
The
like,
people
here's some
that,
colonial silver. Drink
right,
this. This will make you feel better.
yeah, but then you've got the guy, the Facebook dude, doesn't finish college. Why? Because if you could actually go just use that skill, don't want a job, but do something for yourself, make your own website, you don't need that skill, and you can actually run around the whole system that says you do. So it's kind of an example of how in the computer world a lot of this stuff needs to break out to the rest of society, the way we've learned to
Yeah.
see things.
I think we need to tell people more and more, like, there's not just one way to do shit.
Yeah. Well, especially this
You
thing.
can go to college.
We need more
you can
vocational
go to
schools.
college.
We had
Yeah,
more.
we do.
Yeah, when I was Boulder High School was great. So we call it Berkeley of Colorado and stuff. The town is kind of it's rich liberals that don't want poor people around, but they're liberal and things like this. So we had an interesting situation where there was a place called Votech, and for your junior and senior year, if you wanted, you could go spend basically half or 2/3 of your day over at Votech learning
Yeah,
how
we
to
had a
weld.
building too.
And you graduate high school with a certificate, you can go and be getting, $12 an hour right off
We
the
had a
bat.
Votech building for a more cynical reason
And
because they were like, we don't need metal working and wood shopping. We just have a Votech program.
well,
Fuck it.
but this was actually a different campus, and the kids could take a bus if they wanted to go over there for most of their time the last 2 years. And get
Yeah, we
this,
just had a weird building.
they ran the school district's mainframe computer system. So those kids could actually, they could graduate. Most of those kids were over there doing cars.
We had something. We had something like that for our computer program, where it was like in a completely different part of the town. It was in the old silk mill.
And how old are you? You're in your 30s, right?
Yeah, like 30. But like, yeah, we had like this old. There used to be a parachute factory back from World War II in our town, and when that closed down, like they were like, "What do we do with the silk mill? Like, fuck it." So eventually, like the school bought up a big part of it, and they put their computer stuff there. And
Right.
not only did they run the computer stuff for the school, but they also were like the biggest fucking computer repair people in the town.
Right. You could do a service, train kids. You know what? Besides what I really have always thought to bring back, and this is basically what I did in my life, is because I didn't actually self-teach myself. Once I started working, I had mentors. Apprenticeship. We need to bring back apprenticeship, right? And people that have interns, they're bringing back apprenticeship without any obligation to the apprentice. An intern is like disposable. If you like them, they're lucky. If you don't like them, fuck them. And really, an apprenticeship is more like, no, you have an interview process because you're not allowed to just kick this person out of basically
You
their
got
college.
talent.
You got to nurture
You
their
got a natural talent, and I want to.
You're
Yeah,
supposed to
I
take
want to
time
nurture
and
that.
figure out. Yeah, you're supposed to take time and figure out why can't you do this simple job and get them over that hump, and you get really cheap labor for that,
Yeah,
and you
plus,
get the
like,
labor cheap even after a year or so when they start to get good. So it's a fair deal. We need to do it. It would make people love each other more too.
plus,
At
like you
work.
brought up, like internships become like a lot about nepotism. Like, oh, I like this person, or this person is like the cousin of that person.
Yeah, be cheery and don't ever don't do any of the things my fucking coworkers I hate their guts do. And they just got it. It's a weird social thing. On the other hand, it can be good. We had interns when I was at the scientific place I was at in Hawaii, and they got a good deal, and it was the beginning of their career. And it really, because in science there is mentoring and apprenticeship, an idea that you have responsibility to these kids, and we know we're getting their labor cheap, just like grad students. We know, and they get something, so you have to give your part of the deal to get these smart people to do stuff for you just because they're inexperienced. It's mostly the smarts you need. So, but we need to bring that back into business. So who else? I just put somebody on Doc. Kip.
Oh yeah, Donald Trump's going to lose horribly. Did you see he's going to lose Utah now?
No. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the Republican vote's going to be split three ways in Utah. Because Donald Trump, Gary Johnson, the Libertarian, and now there's like some Mormon dude out there who's like, I'm going to get on the ballot. And that's going to split the vote even further. So Hillary might win fucking Utah. That's how bad Donald Trump is fucked up.
I know. Meanwhile, he's campaigning in places like Connecticut. So
yeah, in Oregon, really, and it's savvy. Like,
I thought he was a savvy panderer, but it turns out I didn't think he'd pivot to not, be insulting people and coming up with nicknames and be presidential. but I didn't think he'd try to be more presidential, but I did think he would do a pivot towards populism and more Bernie and more like, abortion is okay. You know, just I thought that's what he'd do. And so the fact that he's not doing that, I realized, you know what, maybe he's not a savvy panderer as we think. He looks like one because he runs with the crowd. He watches the reality, the most headline, Fox News. And so the reason he was tuned in to each one of their fire buttons, like build a wall, wasn't because he wasn't thinking these fucking yokels, they'll love it if I say build a wall. No, he's a Fox News watcher. He believes whatever he read or heard, and therefore he's right in tune with everybody else that does that. But luckily for us, that's Fox News. That's not the
Yeah.
fucking country.
And to be fair, I don't know if that stuff would help him because, like, everything he's fucked up in like the last 2 weeks have just been these other things that like anybody with any modicum of sense wouldn't do, like fighting with the family of that military veteran or saying that like this is a second solution. Casey.
Well, one thing I have a pet peeve about is that the thing about Obama founding ISIS, and then everybody tried to give him the out.
Shit.
Well, everybody was trying to give him the out that was obvious in the first place, which he's saying he might as well be. He's the creator. Okay, fine.
And even then,
like, he doubles down and says, no, literally. But also, and then he comes back and is like, obviously I'm sarcastic. And that's my pet peeve. That's not sarcasm.
Yeah, it was.
That's called. I'm trying to figure out the word for it, but sardonic, maybe. But it's not sarcasm. That's just the wrong word. And other people were calling it sarcastic. But that's all neither here nor there. If I had my way and they wanted to harp on things, I'd still be talking about the
and also
assassinate the judges.
Yeah, that too. And like, did you see like the shit with Hillary? Like another Hillary Clinton email came out, and it turned out like surprise, surprise, she's been using the Clinton Foundation to funnel money to her campaign. Who didn't see that one fucking coming? But instead of fucking Trump attacking that shit, nope, he calls her like the co-founder of ISIS because he's a fucking idiot. Like, I could do a better job of running against Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, well, I'm glad he's not. I think he had a way. He could easily, with his certain kind of Teflon thing, he could have swung further to the Bernie side, but kept talking about, hey, I'm not, I don't believe in socialism, don't really like Bernie, but he and I agreed on the trade deals. He said that. He could have stepped out and said, the $15 minimum wage, I agree with.
Yeah. He kind of tried to do that with like the child
and he could even say, and we'll lower taxes on businesses so they could pay it. See, that's what we're saying. But he didn't do that. And I thought he was going to do something like that. I thought he knew how to pander to the left like he was pandering to the right, but I don't think so. I think he's actually...
You would think he would. He lives in New York.
Yeah.
Like, he used to be friends with Hillary.
Plus, historically, he's been a New York Republican liberal... like a New York Republican that isn't against gay people, like Giuliani, New York Republican that dresses in drag all the time.
Yeah, he had like a weird conservative streak when it came to crime and shit, where it's like anybody who was ever fucking convicted, anybody who's ever accused of crime basically did it. Like with I forget the name of like that crime that happened, but like the kids who like they said they raped that woman in Central Park, but like they didn't do it, and they like spent like 8 years in jail and they got like a bunch of money. Donald Trump is still mad about them getting out of jail, and it's like, why? They were proven not guilty.
Yeah.
Like if you're just if it's like an actual rapist like Mike Huckabee let out, who killed and murdered and raped more fucking people after Huckabee let him out, like I'd understand that, but like these were innocent people like who got fucked over. Like yeah, they should have been let out and given money. Yeah. That's the least we could do.
Well, I thought he was pandering on that, but I think he just follows along what he heard and stuff. Because, like his spiritual advisor is some woman I saw her being interviewed on TV. It's like, well, he turned on Christian TV and he saw me and he called me up and said, because it's like, here's how I think Trump actually is like, okay, a lot of morons out there, they watch Dr. Phil and they wish Dr. Phil could be their family's family counselor. They don't realize out in the real world, Dr. Phil, minus the fact that he can entertain with this stuff, evidently,
kind of a shitty
he's
doctor.
a hack. He's a hack at best. He's behind the times, and he's a hack, and
he's not as bad as that Dr. Oz piece of shit.
Is that the bespectacled one? No.
No, Dr. Oz is the one, like, he's really skinny, and he's the one who, like, does all of the weird, like, holistic shit.
Does he? Yeah. So he looks a little bit.
He kind of looks a bit like the missing Rand. Like,
Wait,
he looks like Rand Paul's missing brother.
This guy. Okay, yeah, I haven't watched him much. And who's the other one that does psychologically at a sex? And he's not so bad.
Dr. Drew.
Yeah, Dr. Drew. So he's a good example of, he's not so disgusting and bad as Dr. Phil, but he also would just be a mediocre actual therapist. And that's how it is on all of TV. Like the preachers on TV, at best, mostly they're crooks, but at best they're usually the mediocre ones. So but Donald Trump's famous. He could see someone on TV just like somebody, struggling along, wishes.
That does make a lot of sense with Donald Trump, because everybody, like, all of his supporters are like, we need a businessman in office. And it's like, okay, I can see somebody making that argument, but why him? He's a failure as a businessman.
Yeah, no, but okay, right, but see, follow me in terms of, if you see what I'm saying. I think he's
I see what you're saying, because he's
so invested in pop psychology. He actually would. I've heard this joke, but he actually would want to nominate Judge Judy to the Supreme Court, because he's one of these guys who'd be sitting there watching Oprah, wishing Oprah was her best friend, recommending books to her at a reading group, and then she reads that book. He is that person, with the difference, he can fucking call Oprah or call that woman on TV and go, will you be my guru? And
it fits into this.
That's him. That's him.
But
he just lives right at the surface. There is no depth.
I'm sorry. We can hear you. But the thing that's, like, making Donald Trump the most angry and sad and frustrated about, like, his current situation in the election isn't like his trailing poll numbers and all that shit. It's like how much the media hates him now.
Is my voice also coming through? I'm just curious.
No, it's perfect. It's good. You wanna say something?
Yeah, well, I just want to jump in. I'm curious. I personally feel like such back and forth is exactly what the establishment wants. It seems like they've got us exactly where they want us when we're kind of like talking back and forth about the show. Because it basically is a show. It's not an election. It's a selection. It's an installation.
Well, but
in my opinion.
Oh yeah, it could have been.
What could we talk about better right now? Exactly.
Yeah. So I personally don't think that Trump even wants to be president, to be honest. I think he's basically a pawn facilitating the installation of Hillary Clinton.
I think he wants to be president now. That's what
he might have not wanted to be president during the primaries.
I don't think he wanted or not wanted it. Yeah, he was just going to pump up his brand, and sell a book.
Yeah, I think that's what his goal was, but once he started seeing, like, his poll numbers and shit rising and seeing that he could literally get away with anything during the primary, he was like, you know what, maybe I can do this. But, like, now, I think he's just miserable, and he's like, I wish I wasn't doing this.
My theory, and I didn't necessarily come up with this, but there's various people on the left saying this, is when he loses, he's going to blame the Republican Party, he's going to blame the press, and he'll be in a position to start a Trump media kind of thing, especially with Fox News possibly collapsing like a flange.
Yeah, that is fucking it. Like so much chaos is happening now on Fox News. It's hilarious what happens when you take away one strong man and, like, just everything collapses.
Yeah.
I hope they get more people like Shepard Smith on Fox News, because he's been, like, the one person over there I've always liked.
You know what? I know. I was thinking that the other day because I switched back and forth and watched them, and I was going, Shepard Smith is probably.
Why watch that stuff, guys? I'm really curious.
It's called scanning the
propaganda. Yeah.
Also, back when Shepard Smith was on at, like, 7.
You think I'm not worried that it's gonna brainwash me?
Yeah.
No,
Also, like,
I'll tell you what I did. I switched off my fucking television when I was 16, you know, and I think that's where we need to go. I think we need to switch the shit off, you know, because you see it all the time. I think you guys are kind of doing it, not to attack you in any way, but I think you're.
No, that's fine. We are here contentious in here.
I'm being respectful, you know. I've jumped into your
Absolutely.
conversation. I'm all about respect, man.
Some of what you're saying to me is a truism, and I think there's extra subtleties, but go ahead.
Yeah. Also on Facebook, you know, I think we see constant back and forth. I mean, I think they've got us exactly where they
I don't go on
want.
Facebook.
Right? Yeah, no, well, wherever, you know, you can go anywhere in any kind of social network, whether it's on YouTube, Twitter,
Because
or whatever.
they rape your personal
Constant back
information,
and
so I won't
forth.
go on there.
I understand, but it seems to me that it's about trying to see through what's actually going on, to see the chess game as it's being played, and to not get caught up in the soap opera, man.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I know what the chess game is.
Yeah. Listen,
You ever read The Prince by Machiavelli?
haven't read it, but I'm aware of it.
Yeah, it's better to read it because what everybody says about it is kind of not quite true. For one thing, Machiavelli did not believe in principalities. He advocated republics.
yeah,
He thought
wasn't that book more like kind of a joke?
No.
I think isn't there an argument that Machiavelli was like, this isn't really to be taken too seriously. Like, I don't
Well,
believe this stuff, but this is stuff
yeah.
that happens.
Well, no. Okay, yes, and there's a lot of interpretation. I'll tell you my interpretation. The book, as everybody knows, is written to a prince of Italy, I guess, and basically saying, look, you got to be a cutthroat in a principality. So, but the context of this is, okay, so a principality where there's a king, royalty that's run that way. He didn't believe that. He wrote another book, the name is escaping me now. You know, he believed in having a republic. All right. Now, that doesn't mean he was insincere what he was telling the prince, basically in the following way. And he says this in the book. It's like, this is the kind of government you have. You have to run it a certain way. And if you don't, if you're a weak prince, then what will happen is those Spaniards will come in, take over the south of Italy, and they'll fuck us for 20 years until a prince comes along that'll shed some blood and whatnot and cutthroat. So he talks about various examples through history of, you know, he invited all the other leaders and then he killed them right there in the meeting. And why would you do that? It's bad. It's a bad moral thing to do, but you're doing it because otherwise the other people take over and they rape your peasants for fucking 50 years.
How does that relate to the present day?
That's how politics actually works.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't have principalities per se, we have another system, and it still works in this cutthroat, actual way, right? So, but anyway, I was just saying what Machiavelli's
that's why I like
perspective
Hillary Clinton.
separate from how there's a lot of clues about geopolitics. Totally,
yeah, that's why Hillary's the Democrat nominee, because like, an actual fucking in any other fucking political system, like, she'd be like, no, you can't be the fucking person running in charge because you're incompetent. You're extremely incompetent.
So we could get more specific. So basically,
but she's fucking cutthroat as shit. Like, that's the thing.
Right. That's the thing. I don't like Hillary, but it's also like a regular American. It's like, that's what Machiavelli was saying is, you know, it's like if you are, you know, don't be a vegan tiger. You could go ahead and be, you know, a gazelle, a vegetarian gazelle, but don't go trying to be a predator gazelle and a vegan tiger. It's like, if you want to be a gazelle, be a gazelle. So
why don't we start thinking a little bit beyond the current, you know, scheme and start questioning the idea of even having a kind of hierarchical system, you know, where you
I totally have. I'm 48 years old. I mean, nobody wants the solutions. The solutions have been figured out. There's solutions to our current problems that you can even solve within a capitalistic society. There's the fact that we're going to evolve out of the capitalistic society. There'll be more and more robotic works. The only valuable property will be real estate, basically, at some point. There's all kinds of things happening we could fix right now without even genius ideas. There's also a million of genius ideas. They're out there. The creativity happened. There's new ideas to make, but we already have, well, like, for example, population growth. That's been gotten under control. Guess why? Well, we figured out if you have clean water, if your kids don't, you know, if you have low infant mortality, you educate women and people learn about birth control, then guess what? They have about 2 kids. So, you know, there's other solutions like that. There's farming solutions. There's people actually, and I believe it's a minority of people actually blocking these solutions on
Guess,
purpose,
guess what
not
we
just
don't.
because they're greedy, but because they're actually hateful and hate the earth and hate their life and hate life. They don't want it to be good for anybody else.
Guess what we don't have under control? Dealing with the concentration of power, whether it's at the government level or among so-called elites. In my opinion, that should have never been allowed. I think we know basically. We even have expressions like, corruption. Power makes one corrupt, right? Power leads to corruption. We know this is an absolute fact, basically, but yet we basically do very little to prevent it from happening. Whether it be having salary caps and preventing people from becoming too rich, or companies from becoming too strong, or governments from becoming too big, we've made very little progress in that area.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
what about Democrat? We call ourselves democratic societies because we get to vote for a half an hour every
Pseudo
two
democracy.
years. Out of
Pseudo.
all the minutes in 2 years, and you get
Yeah.
30 of them to vote, is that really? Because as an engineer, I'm going, I would judge how much of a democracy it is. I mean, how many
No.
minutes do you get to spend
The illusion thereof
deciding?
is,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Several smart people that I've listened to have basically argued that you cannot claim to have democracy if you don't see democracy within the school system, within the workplace, and basically pervasive throughout society.
Yeah, you need democracy in the workplace. And everybody that I've talked to from my 20s on about this, liberal and conservative, has a shocking reaction, a shocked reaction to the very idea. The point being, and they might be right about this, they don't trust the bozos they work with
Mm.
to make decisions. And even though they all hate their bosses, somehow that's a better system. That guy that they've watched make idiot. Not that all bosses are this way. I'm going straight to the point. If people will complain about their bosses, but they don't, which also shows that the complaints about the bosses are just blowing off steam. People basically do think that the boss knows something. I wouldn't want that job or whatever. So, but anyway, so they don't want democracy at work. Well, I understand you can't just have our current workplaces and suddenly everybody votes. And also, I'm a specialist. I want control over my specialty, so I want to roll. And if I'm the third pipe man, then I get to decide what the settings are on all the pipes in that part of the factory. Then we don't vote on it. But we might vote to fire me, right? So it would have to be a somewhat different organization. I agree. It would be scary, some of the dysfunctional places I've been, or the place I just had to leave, if it was just voting in there. But in the long run, it would work out better, and you would have to form. I don't think we have formed these in our democratic society. We have
Yeah.
not formed the checks on. It's not supposed to be a concentration of power, right? Getting back to what you were saying,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be like my best manager I ever had. His idea was that most of his job was kind of a clerical thing to support his workers, make sure they had computers and pens and notebooks and stuff. So, and then also to support him by the pressures on him. He listened to his bosses and didn't. Didn't he didn't take anything out on his team. He protected his team,
Mhm.
and so it's a service thing, and there's a way of power. Like his idea was, and I do deserve to make more money because you can't believe the assholes I work for, but
Yeah.
but uh, but not really more powerful. I also learned at that time that in reality, in a healthy company, employees can get their bosses fired
Mhm.
easier than a boss can get an employee fired.
Right. Well, without going too much into depth about that what I've said, what I've said is very easy to say, but I think there are lots of deeper interrelated issues which need to be realized, such as the fact that with democracy, for example, you need a so-called educated citizenry, right? And
Mhm.
arguably there are things in place such as a culture of distraction, a culture of stupidity, a culture of entertainment, things which we all are to a certain degree addicted to, at least some of us, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like these things need to be addressed, as well as a culture of manipulation by things that are commonplace, such as marketing, right? Things that basically get to the depths of one's mind. mind and lead to, consumeristic behavior and so on and so on and so on. So it seems like we have to go very, very deep and analyze those interrelated issues
Yeah, I
which are
don't think.
present. You know what I
I
mean?
think we need to, as scientists,
Relate to that thought. Yeah.
or as a society that wants to be scientific and learn things, we should study all of those things that you said. They're very interesting. We could talk about them.
We're doing
However,
much damage. Yeah.
causally, my personal theory is causally, no. Um, that's not how we'll fix the situation. It's going to be, I think that prosperity leads to rationality. If everybody has something to lose by being irrational, then the people will only get irrational because of their personality disorders and whatnot. And those could be handled, right? And people might have to go to jail for punching someone or something. But you wouldn't necessarily have the systematic resentment that you have now if you didn't have the systematic abuse of that class of people that's generating resentful people. So I believe if you could just start focusing everywhere always on infrastructure, it's more important than war and everything else. Infrastructure, which allows people to be free to have the liberty to use their social, their nationally built infrastructure. They do business and they're productive with it. And you actually even can build a bridge to nowhere, and people will start building things out there. Somebody will build houses or whatever. You shouldn't waste money like that, but that is how. It's like if you waste fertilizer in the wrong part of the forest, stuff will grow there. You might not want it to be there, so that was stupid, but the point is it's that much of a sure thing. You build infrastructure, then you enable people. And I also, of course, believe in a safety net because people go through individuals' ups and downs. So I'm curious if you've ever heard of...
We're looking at an abandoning of the West, arguably, and a turn toward the East in terms of where the money flow is going and the outsourcing of jobs that's long been happening. I'm sitting here in Austria, guys, just so you know. I'm originally from the United States. I've lived in 6 different countries, so perhaps I have a different bit of a little bit of a different perspective to offer. I personally see, insanity and chaos on the rise, and I feel like we're on a train that won't stop for wisdom.
Have you? I that's very poetically put. I would agree with that sentiment. But I was curious, have you ever heard of Henry George?
No, I have not.
Well, if you're interested in, hey, let's talk about the things that might make a difference or whatever, I would suggest Henry George. Now, he was a famous American back, in the late 1800s, and he was about as well known as Mark Twain at the time, and he wrote a book on progress and poverty about, he had gone around, he couldn't understand, and like in San Francisco, all the capital was coming to San Francisco. It was rich, and yet the poor people actually lived in more extreme poverty than the people out in the countryside. Even though there was all this productivity and those people were involved, he ended up saying it was because of how rent works. And basically said, having a private deed, the capitalist is earning their part by putting in the machinery to do something. The labor is obviously earning their part by doing the labor. The landlord is doing shit all they have is a piece of paper, no obligations, nothing. They just sit around. If you get a piece of paper and you wait long enough in New York, it's worth 10 times more. And it's not because you developed your property, it's because of everybody else that actually did develop the property. And essentially none of that was landlords, other than, of course, sometimes people are their own landlord. But their landlord side isn't what built that, FAO Schwartz or whatever. That was the labor and the capital put into making the building, which is capital. The building is all of the wealth used for the business is the capital. So his solution is you just tax land. You tax the unimproved price of the land. So if you build a big fancy tower or a little tiny hut, that doesn't change. You look at the unimproved value of the land, which is something that's always accounted for. My deed for my house says how much the land is worth separate from the building on it. You tax people based on that. It's as progressive as you can get, because not only do the rich people own the Manhattan real estate where the taxes would be high, but if they don't like that, they're welcome to move out to South Dakota, where they might not have to pay any tax at all, or might be $10 a month, and they could build a giant bank there. Just as big.
Respectfully, I don't quite get where you're going. I mean, it seems like,
That's it.
you know, it seems to me that where there is money, there is exploitation. And it seems to me that if we want, you know, of course, I'm speaking somewhat idealistically, you know,
Money.
something I'm kind of like, you know, aiming for the you know, for the long distance, you know, out of the, you know, the home run hit, so to speak. It seems to me
Right.
that we need to stop working within the broken framework and start to question the framework itself. And
Well, how is that working within the framework? What I just said.
well, I'm just saying I think we need to
Because there's
question
still money.
more fundamentally, we have to question things
Well, let me explain.
such as money
I will
and
explain.
wasting human potential on stupid labor and stupid jobs. And, you know, the reason I jumped into this conversation, if I may just finish my point, it was because you made a comment about refugees, which is somewhat of a sensitive topic, you know, for me, and the idea of putting them in factories. I think that's what you were hinting at. And in this was also
Pudding.
Yeah.
No, I said that if they're the unskilled ones, supposedly, the unintelligent ones, just granting what she had said,
yeah.
they can work in factories, and there's no reason they shouldn't be able to work in
May I say
factories and
something
get a
about that?
living wage
May I say
and
something?
a retirement.
Yeah, I find that to be honest with you,
Do you
quite
wear clothes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you
If
wear clothes?
Can I just
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
I'll very quickly in my point. I don't want to steal the mic. Yeah. Well, to be honest, I find it a bit humiliating to speak of refugees like that. First of all, the elephant in the room is the fact that we've got Western wars
Better
going
just
on.
to say don't let him in because there's nothing for him to do.
No. Let me just make my point, please. The elephant in the room is the fact that there are Western wars going on, and these fucking wars need to be stopped.
Yes.
That's our focus. That's the focus. That's where it should be. But instead, people want to conveniently focus on a so-called refugee crisis. How convenient of us, right, in this so-called Western world to focus on a refugee crisis when the real actual crisis is fucking war.
Right,
know?
But my point to her was that if you're having a recession, you need to ramp up your manufacturing base, and that's where these refugees can work.
Yeah. Well,
now,
here's
if I'm talking to you, a lot of refugees are doctors and lawyers. Who do you think runs out of a country when all shit goes to hell?
So why throw them into a factory?
You're the one that wants to throw them into a factory. I'm sure I never said throw. You project that in and then tell me I'm doing it.
I'm not looking for argument. It's all good, man. We're on the same page. You know.
Well, look, I care about this stuff. I have no problem. I'm glad you brought it up. But I'm saying the other issue is we could talk about getting rid of money and all of that stuff, but it doesn't take very many steps of that where it's pure philosophy. And you're saying don't talk about an election that's happening, talk about something practical. Well, I mean, in my career, I do a thing called refactoring where you have a broken system and it has to keep being used.
Let's stay on the topic.
While you build it, while you build a new system, that's called refactoring. You can't refactor straight. No, I'm talking about the same thing. You cannot jump straight from our system to some ideal system that doesn't even have money unless you have. Can I finish?
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that though, but go ahead.
You have to have steps in between. Yeah,
Clearly.
you were. Maybe you don't know.
Did I say long distance? Did I say long distance? I said long distance. And first of all, that was a different point.
You said a home run, and I said one thing we could do is if we transferred our taxing system to land, there's a lot of benefits. And you're like, well, even money is bad.
How about this?
Well, we're not going to just get rid of money before we figure out a system
I don't want to make a
without
comment
money.
about that. You're talking over me. How about just give me 2 minutes and then I'll
What
stop.
do you mean talking over? I did interject a couple times, but then you kept going, and I
waiting
stopped. And then when it was my turn, you talked over me the whole time. So you're projecting.
I'll wait until you let me talk. Then go ahead.
Well, I was responding to the fact that, yeah, you did say something against incrementalism. You said you wanted a home run.
I don't believe in isms, to be honest, but can I just make the point about?
I don't give a shit about that's semantics. Tell me what you do believe in. Translate what I said into the language you find acceptable, and then explain that.
All right.
You said you wanted a home run.
No. Can I make a point about refugees very quickly? Okay.
Well, look, you pissed me off telling me that I said throw them in factories, which is not at all what I said. So
that's called semantic picking, isn't it? Just because I use that word doesn't mean that I said.
No. You are attributed to me a sentiment that was the opposite of my sentiment. She was saying we have a problem with refugees. There's nothing to do with them, and we can't take care of them. And I said they're useful. They'll work. So you could. Right. So that's what I said. You said throw them in a factory.
Okay.
As if a factory's a bad thing, but you probably wear clothes, and I'm curious where they're made.
Do you know what constructive conversation is? Do you
I
know
don't
how
want
to
to be lectured. I'm interested in what you have to say, so go ahead and say it, but don't lecture me about that.
All right. Well, you know, I want
I
you to
haven't
keep.
found your
I'm trying to
conversation
talk. I'm
constructive.
trying to talk, man, but you keep talking over
No,
me.
you tried to
So,
lecture me about constructive
well,
conversation.
if you'll
Don't
be
make a
quiet
dig.
for
Don't
one
throw a dig
second,
out like that. Just
if
make
you'll
your
be
comment.
quiet for 1 second, I can make a point, right? Let me tell you this. I've got refugees down the street from me, my friend. I live here in Austria. I've taught refugees. We got refugees coming into this country. The thing is about America, that's, you know, the United States, which is so convenient, is that you're removed from most of the shit that's happening. Okay? So keep that in mind. And when I said throw people in factories, I was mainly referring to Merkel, okay, who happens to be, you know, in Germany, right? I guess you know who that is.
Yes.
I was referring to her basically bringing in so many people and sort of insinuating that they would be the people who would basically be earning the money to help pay for the next generations because of the fact that they have a low population growth at the moment. And my main point is simply to say how insulting that is to bring people from war-torn countries, right, and to basically with the idea of exploiting them further by throwing them in factories as if we were doing something good for them. How fucking fucked up is that, man? That's surreal thinking. I'm sorry. There's no respect in that.
Well, you can imagine why I misunderstood your comment to be about what I had said.
Well, one reason is because you didn't pause for me to actually make a comment.
No, I did let you have a comment, and then I thought it
Hardly.
was my turn, and you talked over me the whole time. So
Hardly.
could you have to get over that if you really
You're
want to
long-winded,
get
and you
over
need
that?
to get over that too. You need to allow pause. You need to allow people to participate in conversation. As I'm doing right now.
When you made the comment about throwing them in factories, I thought you were talking
Jumped on
because
it.
you said,
With an assumption. You
tell
jumped
me when I get to go, and
Go.
at least make it 30 seconds for me,
Go.
okay? You be
Go.
the master of ceremonies for a bit. We'll try it
I
your
don't
way.
want to be master. You go.
You said you were replying to what I said about factories. Now, my response to you is no, I don't think saying there's work for people. And when people say, but they have no skills, I don't think the fact that they say, well, not all work requires that much skills, I don't think there's a problem with that. And unless you don't use anything from factories, you should be more concerned about making factories decent places to work than about, oh, factories, how disrespectful. That's my position on that.
May I interject?
No, because I'm done. You can just go. I had 30 seconds. I think that was about 25.
You can have more time if you want. I'm respectful like that.
I finished.
Okay. Well, first of all, the idea of putting people in factories, or whatever word we might want to use, because please don't jump on my words and you know, and nitpick, right? It's a little bit silly because there aren't that many factories in the United States in the first place. The factories have been shipped abroad, you know, so arguably the manufacturing sector is a declining sector in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
There's that fact to think about.
That's a problem.
Secondly, the idea of bringing it back is like wishful thinking, because
No.
basically the factories go where the wages are fucking low, and you cannot compete with people who are earning 30 cents an hour. You know, it's very hard to do that. I'm not saying there are no factories within the United States. There certainly are, but let's keep in mind language. The language factor alone, putting somebody in a factory who does not speak the language. Man, think about culture, man. Think about culture clash. Think about, like, you know, what we're doing to people to take somebody, put them in a factory, and to it where you tend to have people who don't tend to be the most open-minded, right? Put them into that kind of environment where they might be likely to, like,
Aren't open-minded?
cultural conflict. Yeah, like rednecks working in factories, for example, racist people, people who might be anti.
So what do you suggest?
Well, I suggest that there's no
If
wisdom.
factory jobs are off limits to them, and obviously my point was that we need to bring manufacturing back, what do you suggest do we allow them other jobs?
No, we end the fucking wars and we focus our attention there. That's what's going to happen.
The refugees are here now, and the wars aren't ended. So, unless you're talking about going back in time, that obviously we should end war in the future. You and I agree on that.
That's why I'm saying it's like we're bypassing the elephant in the room and talking about a side topic, which is also important. Clearly, but it's nonetheless a side topic. If the fundamental issues are not addressed, you'll have problems. Bring in a person from a war-torn country who doesn't speak your language, doesn't get your culture, you're going to end up with conflict of some kind. Duh, you know? It doesn't
Yeah,
take
duh. Who
brains to
doesn't know
figure that
that?
out, you know? You know?
And
I
there's
mean,
people in the world that want conflict because they profit off of the mechanics of conflict.
exactly. The
Exactly. Yeah, it's
military.
well known. It's been well known.
Well,
I was raised knowing that. That's
good.
obvious. So
I think you worked for them, right? I think you mentioned the defense industry, right? I assume. I overheard that at the beginning of the conversation.
I was saying, no, that's not what I said. I said the reason I was able to become a professional programmer and get paid starting at 13 and use that as how I worked my way through college, getting the
Yeah.
philosophy degree, and I've always been a software engineer, is because at the time, all the educated people, they were all employed at higher paying jobs in the Department of Defense or for banks, hospitals, just a few industries that
Mhm.
used computers in the 70s and 80s. And
Mhm.
80s being when I came on. And so I worked in the public sector, and no, I've never worked for the Department of Defense. Have you?
No, I would never do so. It shouldn't be called the Department of Defense. It should be called Department of Offense, right? If we're speaking of geopolitical strategy and all that.
I haven't heard
Things
anything practical. I haven't heard anything more practical than whether you vote for Hillary or Trump. So what's the practical idea? I told you one idea. Your response was non-engagement to that. In fact, you started lecturing me on other issues. So what's
Oh,
your projective thing then? What should we be talking about to get this? I know the things you're talking about, the backstabbing of geopolitics, all the rest, chaos, profiting. So what do you want to do about it?
well, I think we should,
What
for
is the
the
subject?
just to start off, we should stop getting distracted by all the sideshows. I mean, the idea of two intelligent people sitting there, I mean, like you and this other guy were doing
Well, then
earlier.
let's stop being
I don't
distracted
think
by
that,
it right now. I'm interrupting now because don't say that
oh,
again. What we do
okay.
right now is
I'll just
stop
finish my
saying
piece.
it. No, you're being distracted by it. Is if that's all you want to talk about,
You
that
don't
we're
know my
being
point.
distracted. My point is this conversational room is here to not be distracted about it. We talk about things that never get on TV in here. So tell me what we should be talking about. Let's just, boom, I'm not distracted by it. Boom, we're not talking about it. What can we talk about now?
Oh wow.
Or you
Okay.
just want to complain about people?
No, well, I mean, to be honest, it's very interesting, kind of sad because I don't do Google Hangouts like this that often, but and I think I know why, because a lot of people who run these things are very ego driven, all right?
Whatever.
Yeah, and they don't want to allow for much outside input, right? If you really were interested in learning from me, like I might be interested in learning from you, because it should be a mutual learning experience, not your ego talking and my ego talking at you, right?
You have had at least half the time since you started talking.
Okay, but my points have also been interrupted quite often, right?
You interrupted me. I mean, I interjected something right now because I don't want to keep. We got the point about we're too distracted about those things I was talking about with napalm. So we stopped that conversation, and so far, all we're talking about is about how we're distracted by the conversation that we're no longer having. No,
Yeah,
let's stop having that. Tell
yeah.
me what we should be talking about.
Okay.
You
What
get to raise the subject that's
you
better than that distraction.
you've you
You're
you
talking about
you've
the distraction, you're still distracted. Does
yeah
that make
you've
sense?
you've said it right there. You've said exactly what we need to stop doing. We need to stop talking about the distractions, and we need to get more at the root of the causes.
Like Henry George I'd mentioned. So I brought that up
Mm,
because I think that's
mm.
at the root.
There are a myriad of intellectuals that you could like pull out of your hat. You know, there are lots of people who have said things in the past which deserve
But I didn't
attention.
pull a name out. I told you his system, which is we tax land
Yeah.
only, and the government, nobody privately owns land. You basically lease your land from the government by paying the taxes. You have all the rights of private property ownership,
But,
except for you can't
well,
really
why go into
forcibly
that?
expand it.
Why go into that again? I could pull out names like Jacques Fresco.
It's not a name because you said let's not be distracted. Let's talk
Okay.
about the real solutions.
Yeah.
You brought up one real solution. Okay, we'll talk about that. I guess you think this is the most fundamental thing. At least it's the only one I know you brought it up that we really have to address how the brain control of our media and our consumptive society and our participation in that.
You are
Is that
speaking
is
for
that
me.
the subject?
No,
No,
you
that's something you brought up. I'm asking you, and then you won't say anything, so I brought up Henry George because that's an example of something I think is a non-distractive, real deal thing to discuss. You disagree, so bring up one you think is a real deal to discuss.
okay? Notice that. All right, here's one. Language. Notice the tone of your voice. Notice the aggression in it. Okay?
Yeah.
Language is essential. I'm
Sorry,
making my
I was
point now.
distracted. I was distracted by a
Yeah,
person I didn't
language
realize.
is an essential thing to focus on because you know
Oh,
we're talking about communication. Communication is essential. If you want me to throw out a name, I'll throw out Jacques Fresco. Are you familiar?
I want to know what the theory is you're bringing up.
Venus
Jack Fresco.
Project.
Yeah, it sounds vaguely familiar. No, I'm not familiar. I don't know
Okay.
what it.
Resource-based economy.
Okay.
Does that say anything to you? But
Yeah.
once again, you know, we were talking about the train that doesn't want to stop for wisdom. So what I might,
Is
you know,
Jack Fresco that zeitgeist guy?
he was mentioned in Zeitgeist, but I wouldn't just dismiss him as a Zeitgeist guy.
No,
He's
I
a guy
mean the
who's,
guy that made Zeitgeist. You know, somebody different.
no, he didn't make it.
He's
No,
not the Venus
he was
Project
featured.
thing.
He was featured in it, yeah,
Okay, right.
but he didn't make it. That's a guy who has devoted his life to actual problem solving, not back and forth arguing and soap opera stuff like we've been doing for the last I don't know how long. Right? So actually getting to the fundamental, you know, root of the issue.
Oh my God. Okay, so your answer of what we can do is learn how to get to the fundamental root of the issue better.
Why the oh my God? Why that sort of
Because that's what I'm saying. Let's do it. Name a fundamental issue. That's what I'm saying. Let's dig down. I came up with one. I have some others. What do you think a fundamental issue is? There's fundamental issues at every layer of the onion. Like one that is very much not changing our current system very much, that I assume is not a home run enough for you to be interested in, but as an example, is getting money out of politics. We need publicly financed elections where they're not even financed. You have C-SPAN channels to show your ads on and you that kind of thing. So that's a fundamental getting to a root of a part of the problem.
Oh,
So
there are
I'm
many.
asking you, I know you want to get to the root of the problem, so you have a
Yeah.
chance right now. Name
Okay.
a root.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, the onion has many layers, right?
Yes.
So let me ask you this: do you watch television?
Not much, no.
How often?
What do you mean television? I watch things on the computer.
Mass media, such as you know what, the major
Well,
networks.
I keep up. I've been watching Fox and CNN
Why?
and
Why?
MSNBC, and I watch Democracy Now! Out of an actual appreciation for it, and PBS. Why? Why not? Because it's information. I value information of all sorts. I can subtract noise from information. I don't feel, why should I have to live in the dark and put my head in the sand about what people are saying to each other?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. But there is a difference between good information and bad information, misinformation, disinformation, and all that, right?
Right, but if you know somebody's lying to you, listening to the lie they tell can tell you a lot about what their real
I
goals
can
are.
respect that. Yeah, I do it too. I analyze sometimes the propaganda. But I think in general, that's a fundamental issue. People need to switch off their fucking televisions in general.
I think they
And
need to learn how to be able to watch television without getting a mind control brain in their head. They ought to be able to watch something
yeah,
without believing it. People
sure.
need to learn how to memorize more than one story. This is what I think people need to do on a personal level recently, is that
Okay.
it's just like people spend their time trying to figure out what they think is the situation. And
Mm,
then they memorize it and they can't remember what the other person said. And really, the knowledge is complex and you need to memorize multiple stories. Kurosawa, you have to know everybody's story. And if you're lucky, between all of those stories, you can write a story that's even better or have
mhm,
some understanding or choose one story that seems like the real one. And
mhm,
even then, remember the other stories. And if people did that, they could keep
mhm,
stuff more clear.
mhm,
You could keep a conspiracy theory for a few years and find out if
mhm,
it was real. Like, for
mhm,
example, I was told by the liberal people as a
mhm,
young activist that Ronald Reagan had made a deal with the Iranians to hold the hostages and let them out, hold the hostages for the election to help him get elected and let him out after he was elected.
mhm,
And I found that a little bit incredible to believe, but it did kind of look like it. And of course, it turned out to be true.
mhm.
So I held that story for a long time before I knew if it was true. It's only possible if you like to remember multiple threads and multiple stories, right?
Okay.
So
I,
maybe
I,
there we could agree on that.
No, I would argue that's not where it's at. I would say that memorization of script is definitely not where it's at. Critical thinking.
Memorization of script. You reword me a lot, and you say
Can I
tone is
just
important. No, no.
can I
When you
can I
no, no, I want to say that you said tone is important. I
go ahead.
think paraphrasing people is important.
All right.
I don't want to throw people in factories just because I mentioned the word factory. All right, and I don't want to memorize scripts because I said I'm going to memorize more than one story. Yeah, I
Okay,
don't
stories. You want to
appreciate that.
memorize
That is a
stories.
dishonest
Stories.
interaction that is not what you just described
Okay, let's talk about
a
stories
minute
then.
ago.
May
But
I may I
I
finish?
have to take a break, and maybe
Ah,
I
okay.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Do that.
Somebody just came to my house.
Do that.
I am giving some
Yeah.
controls here to, and maybe Kaylin will speak up, and you
Mm.
can um,
Sorry, I
continue
wasn't talking. I was eating. I'll be right back though. I gotta get
the controls.
some tea.
I would share controls with you, Eddie, but it's pointless. It's just pointless.
It really is. It's like
What's pointless?
I just leave. Well, I'm not good to have controls because like I don't use them and I just leave
Okay,
and I forget about them.
I see.
But I'll be right back. I'm gonna get some tea. Sorry about that. Too much broccoli.
No, no problem. No problem.
So I don't know where to continue the conversation from Para because I
That's
wasn't
okay.
in it.
That's okay. I don't feel like it was much of a conversation, but yeah,
I
it's just me.
was putting food in my fat face.
Mm.
Thing I wanted to bring up, but I can't remember what it was. Oh yeah, I wanted to know if Pura saw like the fact that whales are having a war with each other, or something like it.
Who's having a war with each other? Sorry.
Whales, apparently.
Whales.
Yeah.
Okay, that's totally new to me.
Apparently the killer whales are like
Okay.
having
Well,
scuffles with gray. It's either gray whales or humpback whales. Humpback whales are like coming in and disrupting hunting pods of orcas and letting their like prey escape, and this is happening
mm-hmm.
like all over the oceans, and nobody knows why. They're like, we don't know
Okay.
why all the humpback whales hate the orcas now. It's not like an actual war. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's totally new to me. I haven't heard about that.
So I know orcas like they can like if one orca learns something, like it spreads.
Mm.
So I'm wondering if like maybe that's the way it is with like humpback whales, and maybe like an orca killed a baby and like that somehow spread.
No idea.
I don't know how that would spread though,
Yeah.
because it's not like a hunting technique. Because that's what's like usually spread amongst like because now like orcas because this one pod in California learned how to put sharks into I think it's tectonic stupor. But basically, if you flip a shark over on its back, its brain gets flooded with serotonin.
Mm-hmm.
And like this one pod of orcas like learned that, and then once like some of those orcas left the pod to go join new pods or make their own, like that technique just spread, and now like orcas all over the place have been shown to be using that hunting tactic.
Mm-hmm.
Those are interesting to me. Cause like they've had a brain like as big as ours, but they've been around longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I read something about sharks recently that certain sharks can live up to, what, 350 or 400 years, I think the article claimed, which was new information to me.
Lobsters are another thing that live for like I think they said lobsters are basic like barring disease or predation, like lobsters don't die of old age. They're
Mm-hmm.
like once they just reach a certain point, their cells just keep regenerating as they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they've discovered like recently like one lobster that was like 200 years old.
Yeah, well,
All kinds of cool shit in the sea. Somebody else is in here. This room's usually more busy. Then I guess it gets busier later on.
I don't know, but to be honest with you, I think this will probably be my last time. My experience hasn't been very good. I think a lot more pausing needs to happen for other people to to interject.
Oh no, like since Piro didn't give me like I knew this was gonna happen. Kip, I knew this was gonna happen when Piro didn't give me mods. I knew like Kalins would leave and then somebody would pop up and I wouldn't be able to put them on mic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Infinity.
No, it's okay. No problem.
You had to wait for Piro.
No, it's okay. I won't wait much longer. I don't think it really makes much sense. I think he mainly talks to himself.
Oh wait, Kalins is back. Oh no, Damaged Soul. Sorry, Damaged Soul. I can't I can't unmute anybody. Like Piro didn't give me the things. Even though I told him not to give me the things, so like wasted all my own petard.
Okay. I think I'll head out. Hope you guys have a nice day.
Alright. See you, Kip.
Yeah, see you.
Where's my well, like it's just fuck, it's shit, it's just me. Like I got shit. Like all this fucking pressure. I don't like this. I don't know Infinity. Like somebody's at his house. Piro, if you can hear me, help. Kip, come back. Kip was misunderstood to me. This project isn't. I don't know much about the Venus project. So, like, again, I can't comment on this. I'm, I'm not good at like the smart talk unless it's like politics. Fuck. Oh, resource-based economy. Okay. Shit. I gotta think of something I could talk about by myself. It's sunny outside in the midst of a heat wave. Wind is 5 knots. I can see a tree, some rocks. Fuck. Oh, thank God, Kalen's. Oh no, Kalen's Kalen's. Do you still have mod powers? Can you unmute people? No, I'm not, no damage. So I'm not doing a good job. I am splashing harder than a fucking magic card. Oh shit. Um. Just fucking pop culture. Like, I mean, I fuck it. I guess I could bring it down like to that level and just be like, Suicide Squad was another fucking disappointing piece of shit from Warner Brothers. Like, it made me like, like fucking movie. Shit. Oh god, now the dogs are barking. Everything's falling apart. Now Casey's kind of a normal sized dog. Or like, I don't, is there like a normal? I don't get into like existential questions about dog sizes. Like, what is a normal dog? Who's a good boy? Hero, help, please. I just went silent for like 30 seconds because I was just sitting here just like, just being like, fuck. Just, but in my head, mentally. It's a garbage fire. Twitter, it's awful. It's like, why is Max barking? One second, let me go deal with this dog. And like, silence might be better. I don't know. Oh fuck, Piro's not back. I was hoping he'd get back by the time I took a pee. Oh no, shit. Nah, Piro left because somebody was at his house. Like, Piro! Piro! SOS! Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I don't want to yell too much. Like, somebody might, like, in the house might be like, Matt, are you having, like, some kind of Greek philosopher-based stroke? Like, are you just gonna yell Socrates next? Like, what's happening? Stop it. Oh, Hero! Thank God! You're back!
But tell him back.
He lost his mod powers, and then I've just been stuck here, like, trying to fill the void because, like, I can't unmute anybody.
And I should have given you the powers.
I told
I
you,
told you
motherfucker, you should have had it as a backup in case something happened to me, Matt.
It never paid off before. I've made it as a backup before, and it never paid off. He's the one that gets kicked.
Piro, can you remod me, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
I fucked everything.
Okay, here you go.
Like, as soon as, like, you
Alright,
left, like,
thank
Kayla's
Look, and you had no powers, and you
reset his
still-
computer.
You had no powers, and you still counted up as you fucked up everything. No, I think I did. Okay, note to self. I knew when I left, when I said that, I should have stopped and gave it to him. Anyway.
I fucked up.
I
Sorry,
immediately
Piro.
panicked.
Oh, wait.
So,
Sorry about that, Piro. I fucked up, man. I should have stayed here I should have stayed longer. But I
Or
fucked
you
up.
could have
Also
modded him.
kidnapped.
Oh, that's right. You could have modded him. I passed
Yeah.
it.
Wait, I didn't even know I can mod people. Really?
Can't you? I'm pretty
Uh,
sure. We should
uh,
check that out because I've been assuming that if I left one, that you could distribute it.
Oh,
It's not
I
so
didn't-
important now, but when
Yeah, I
since
didn't
I
even
leave
know
the
I
room going after I leave for the night, it's like then it's useful to know all this
everybody's
shit.
unmuted now, so
Yeah.
everybody can talk. You just gotta unmute yourself.
Yeah, but I don't know how to, it doesn't give me the option when I click on the little down arrow, or do I need to go up someplace else and mod somebody?
Hello, everyone.
Hello, did the crazy guy leave?
I liked Kip.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Me
did
too,
Chip
but
leave?
I was hoping he would still be here.
He got under your skin, didn't he, Pyro?
Well, yes, because another thing is, it's like he's doing something that any of us are well experienced with now, and it's kind of concern trolling. But he comes in, says your conversation is pointless. So I am open to that criticism, and it's like, okay, yeah, let's get to the fundamentals. I'm willing to talk about everything up and down the scale, but let's do that. And then all he wants to say is, well, we need to get to the fundamentals. Okay, how about right now? Okay, well, here's a guy that says we need to talk to each other so we can get to the fundamentals. All right, let's do that right now. And it's frustrating when somebody lectures you about your tone, but they paraphrase you in totally twisted ways.
I should have talked about Sausage Party. And how it's like the best anti-religious movie ever made.
Okay, I have share controls. Okay, I know how to share controls now. All right.
Oh yeah, and it's on right because the other part is it's the control.
Have you seen that trailer?
Yeah.
Has anybody in here seen the trailers for that movie?
Tell me what it is.
It's a 3D animated movie by Seth Rogen, and it's
okay, wait.
adult comedy movie.
Infinity, you also have one second. Infinity, you have controls, by the way, bro. In case something happens to me, like I get disconnected, or something happens to Bureau.
It's like an adult 3D based
Sausage
comedy based off of like Pixar kind of movies, and it's about like all this food in a grocery store, and all of them want to be picked for like this big party, and like to be picked, they have to be like perfect. They have to be in pristine condition. They can't be, because if like they're dirty and stuff, they won't be picked. So it has this weird fucking like religious message to it, and I just thought it was gonna be a dumb movie about like dick and vagina jokes, which there's a lot of dick and vagina jokes in it, but I'm like, this is like the best anti-religious movie I've seen since like fucking the invention of wine.
Oh, this looks great.
I need to.
The Invention of Lying's another good movie too. That's a movie with Ricky Gervais, and he makes up. It's in a world where lying never happened. Like so, nobody knows what lying is
So
because
it's-
nobody's ever lied
Yeah,
to anybody.
like if
So
somebody.
Ricky Gervais. I'm sorry, Caleb.
Oh no, I was just gonna say if somebody hits on you or whatever, instead of giving them, like a polite lie, maybe you're just like,
Yeah.
no, you're incredibly ugly, and I don't want
Yeah,
I don't
that's
want to
actually a
appropriate with
bit
you.
in the movie. Like that's actually one of the bits in the movie, but like the reason he invents lying is because his mom's in a nursing home and she dies at the beginning of the movie and she's all scared and shit and he's like all sad and panicking in the moment, so he just invents like the idea of the afterlife then and there. Just to comfort his mom, and then like a nurse overhears him and then it just snowballs from there.
Interesting. Yeah, I have to pay for it to watch it on Amazon.
No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. All you got to do is upload Telly TV. Watch everything free.
Telly TV?
Mm-hmm. Telly TV.
You know, before I used to watch things on that Mega Upload for a few years before they started charging, and then the guy got in trouble.
Well, Mega
But
Upload.
after that, I haven't been.
Well, Mega Upload connects to Telly TV.
Really?
What's it spelled?
Telly TV.
Home TV and movies
Yeah,
on telly.
yeah. I will get you the address.
After the end.
Hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a dumb movie, but I actually was like, you know what, this is actually pretty good. Like,
Which
Yeah.
one?
Sausage Party. Just
Oh,
just
you already
looking at
saw
the
it? It looks good to
trailers-
me.
Yeah, looking at the trailers, I was like, this seems like a joke movie. This seems like a movie that shouldn't exist.
Like Snakes on a Plane.
Yes! Oh my god, I hate snakes on the plane.
I know. I think it's good what had happened. It's a little thing that happened, but for it to have worked out, it would have had to been as funny as Airplane was at the time. Which the joke, how could you do that? They didn't really pull it off, and they could have. Still, it was fun to see all the. I mean, movie that just came about that way.
Plus, it had like the worst thing that any kind of bad movie has, in my opinion. Where halfway through, they realized they were making a really shitty movie, so they were like, "Let's just lampshade this and like acknowledge we're making a shitty movie."
Like Sharknado.
Because in my opinion,
Yeah.
yes, like Sharknado.
Except for
the
they
best
really
shitty
knew.
movies come. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say the best shitty movies, in my opinion, come from a place of love and not
Right.
knowing better. Like Ed Wood.
Well, okay, no, there's some that knew, like, from my classic when I was younger, Toxic Avenger, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
I legitimately like the Trauma movies, so
Yeah, of course, but they were made like over the top, like an underground comic, and they pulled it off. And if they'd done that with probably there were too many professionals involved with Snakes on a Plane, like Machete. I think Machete. I thought that pulled it off. Did you ever see that one?
Yeah, I
want
want-
to see that actually.
I love Steven
Yes,
Seagal in it when he's just like, when Steven Seagal's just like, "Fuck you! I'm not gonna let you kill me," and then he just kills himself, and I'm like, "That is the greatest villain death ever! Like,
Yeah.
you're not gonna kill me, I'm gonna kill me."
I remember something like, I remember a scene with a villain who's like, you can't kill me, only I can kill me, and then he killed himself or something like that. Let me see.
You know, a bad film that I don't think was meant to be bad, but it was just an adventure film, so they didn't really care, that I really like, Anaconda with Ice Cube from the late 90s. You ever see that one?
And
It's just bad.
Jennifer
It's just bad.
Lopez.
Yeah, Jennifer Lopez. That's a good one. But it wasn't meant to be bad, but it was good bad.
And
It was Ed Wood style, good bad.
I know everybody hates this movie. I like the spirit. I thought it was fucking fun as shit. I love the spirit. I don't know. I like the spirit. I thought it was
I
a
haven't
fun.
seen it.
It's like, and I know why people are like it's an incredibly
Because
good.
nobody likes anything from. I'm surprised you of all people came. It's like fucking something from the 30s.
This is true, actually. Wait, what do you mean, me of all people? Like, no, elaborate on that
I'm
thought,
just
you
saying, like
motherfucker.
you give me shit for liking Golden Age comic books with all the fucking slap and jap shit, and then you're like, I really enjoyed the Spirit.
You know
And it's
what?
like, have you ever read a Spirit comic from back in the 30s?
You know what? Slap a jap. That's all I have to say to you, good sir. Slap a jap. What is it? Slap a jap, and we will feed the red Chinese.
You know
Are
the
these
Spirit
things
slap
you
jap
love?
back in the 30s, right? Like,
And I like
he
the
did
movie,
that thing.
not
He
the
did
fucking
those
comic. You know
things.
what? I like the movie, not the comic. There you go. That's my excuse. Ha. There you go. That's my excuse. I have an
Oh,
excuse.
fuck. You got me on
Ha!
that one.
I win. I win.
But
Because
to
the spirit.
explain,
Oh,
the Spirit Hero is he's like this old timey pulp superhero before superheroes, and he wears like a purple leotard with a domino mask. And like the
Right.
main gimmick about the Spirit is there's been like a bunch of them. It's like a family line of white saviors for this African tribe because, of course, 1930s. What
the
else would it
city.
be? Black
The
people
city
can't
is
save
my mother.
themselves. They need a white person.
The city is my mother. I drink from her tit. That is from the. That is from the.
Oh wait, not the Spirit. I'm thinking of the Phantom.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh God, no! I hated
I'm,
the.
I'm stupid. I'm sorry, Caleb.
No
oh.
problem. I
Well, you
hated it.
got
Oh
some of
yeah,
it
like the
looked
Spirit's
right
also.
because some of it looked right because I could tell from the poster I pulled up, and it's got. It looks like is that Samuel L. Jackson?
The main
Yes,
thing
that
with the
is Samuel.
Spirit,
He's the
he's also
octopus.
another pulp hero. The other thing with the Spirit is he's another pulp hero, but his big claim to fame was he was created by Will Eisner, the Disney artist. He
Right.
was like the big thing that Will Eisner did that wasn't Disney related.
And it was so it wasn't your. So wait a second. Which part was right that you were telling me? Is this like a 30s?
Yeah, he's so
So
the
it
Spirit's
was a
still in the
30s
30s.
comic, and you're saying not just set in the 30s, but it actually is an old comic?
Yeah,
I see. I'd never heard
I
of it.
got confused because I thought it was the Phantom. The Spirit's just like a guy in a fucking normal like clothes with a domino mask.
Hey,
Phantom has like a whole weird like purple leotard and weird fucking
can we get?
white man's burden backstory.
Can we get Kit back in here? By the way, that was hilarious. I wanted to hear the insane shit he had to say.
I think Kip left for good.
God
He's
damn it.
like I don't think I'm coming back ever again. You chased him away, Piro.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I've got to say this.
He just wants to come in and lecture people. I don't get that kind of thing, you know. And then when I had to leave, he did that like, "Oh yeah, sure,
Well,
sure,
I
of
kind
course
of
you do."
realized, like, early on, it's like, oh, this is the guy Infinity was arguing with last week.
No, that was Dawkins, wasn't it?
No,
Wasn't
I think that was Kip. I'm pretty sure that was Kip that
Alright.
Infinity was arguing with
Okay,
last week.
I gotta say one thing though. Okay, so Piro, you know
It
everyone
sounded like the
who.
same guy.
No, I don't think that was the same guy.
Okay, so Piro,
Okay, was it? Alright.
everyone who has left your chat goes to Brandon's chat now. Like Dawkins is in Brandon's chat. It's weird. It's like they
well,
come
let
in
that guy
here,
go. I mean, good lord.
like they come
We
in.
should go raid his thing. Then I don't have a link. He doesn't. I don't get a link on.
Wait, he doesn't send you a link, or do
No,
you
he does, but I got like 3 channels. I got to be like logged into the right combination uh, of Google Plus or
If
whatnot,
he
and
would
then it
accept,
shows up.
if he would accept my Skype request, then I could send it to you on Skype.
You have a Skype request? My Skype's open. I haven't looked at Skype for months. Where is it?
Yeah, like I can send you a Skype request. But yeah, basically like Infinity, like Dawkins is in there now. It seems like everybody who comes in here like somehow ends up there. That's where Andrew is. That's why Andrew doesn't show up anymore. That's where Vic is now. Because Vic is still pissed off at Piro.
Well, that's fine too. So this is the stuff. I mean, I'm not invested in this in a particular way. It's like I felt that he wouldn't give the other people their chance, and also it was like, well, but I'm defending my only side. Yeah, you have one opinion out of 8 people or 10 people at that time, and that doesn't mean you get 50% of the time. That still means you get an eighth of the time. And if you're outnumbered, so your opinion isn't automatically worth 50% of the time just because you're the only one that has it. So
Yeah,
we
I
have
agree.
been talking about it for 5 months, and where do we make progress? I actually feel like I could make more progress and am just thinking over these arguments because we settled into certain patterns. Like what if a bunch of criminals wear purple caps and you see someone with the purple cap?
Yeah.
It's like it's the same old thing, and I
The
don't see
problem
there.
I see with the conversation is by getting into these analogies and things of like wearing the purple caps and all that, you're not drilling down to the fundamentals of what you're really saying. You're just trying to get the person to agree with something that you're saying. You're trying to get the person to, well, that's reasonable. Yeah, they're wearing purple caps. But you're not really talking about what is the fundamental thing going on here, and how does that really apply to what we are really concerned about?
Well, go ahead.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
The one thing I liked about Brandon was that, okay, like maybe no one likes the word objectivism, but the point of objectivism is that you leave emotions out of the discussion. And and let's face it, we're very emotional people, right? So I think sometimes he was trolling, but I also think that sometimes he was just trying to make a point about being objective. And some of his stuff I get. He's also a libertarian of his own definition, so that to me was kind of interesting because I love arguing with libertarians. But yeah, he did troll, and yeah, he did kind of make fun of us. But again, that was because we're so emotional. But
No, that's not the reason.
well,
That
what's the reason,
he's
Infinity?
just as emotional as anybody else. I mean, he's not on some
Well,
pedestal
I
of
don't think he did
non-emotion.
particularly make
He's
fun of
not
us.
Dr. Spock.
He's acting the same way in his own things, and I've known him for years, and he's a kind of a new style for him, that part of it. But I think that's just the way he's done it. You see, when I was a kid, uh, the free speech people, it was the liberals and people like that. You couldn't say the things they wanted to say. You couldn't talk about we killed all the Indians. People would be like, oh, get out, these things that now they feel are the dominantly accepted truths, and they feel they're always having to say free speech and why. So they want to be the rude ones, calling jeers and electing Trump on not Brandon but that whole side because they feel like the weight of society's ability to quash speech, not just with law, but like with everybody around you going, oh, tisk, 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 they feel beset upon, right? And so that's made them feel more like being the rude ones and shocking and just reveling in trying to say something shocking. But I don't think it really is very shocking, to be asked on a subject like of Ayn Rand being a hypocrite, just going, oh yeah, well fuck the Indians, and not taking up the subject matter.
Well, now I
Uh,
have to. I was just gonna say, I have to time people in his room now if they talk about shit he doesn't want to hear about for like the 50th fucking time. Like with Vic. I had to fucking time the subjects that Vic and shit were getting into because they wouldn't talk about realism or something. Like, they wouldn't use examples for what they were discussing in reality. They would use, like, hypotheticals and shit, and that just drove him insane.
yeah, yeah.
That's true.
Well, I would appreciate it if Brandon was a more honest actor. I mean, I just you don't know when he's full of shit and when he's
Right.
actually for real. That's the problem.
Right. Well, I just think that the part I've known for years is the real part, but you never know that either. It's like, no, maybe this is the new him, and so I see what you're saying for sure. The
No,
thing
well, yeah,
is,
maybe it's easier for you because you've known him and I don't know him. He's just some
right.
guy.
But I was
You know.
also saying it's an illusion that just because I've watched this vlogger and talked with him over the years that he's gone for a year or so and then comes back full time. I can't assume the person I learned of in the past is really the accurate one, right? So I'm actually in the
Yeah.
same place as you. It is hard to tell, but it does. There's a residue of I know he's pretty much likes logical stuff and can take a differing opinion. So I cut him a lot of slack for that reason.
Well, it's just
But
hard to understand like when it's really beneficial to even contradict what he says. Because I mean, like last week he said, "Oh, the planet could take 50 billion people on it." You know.
yeah,
Well,
And then
theoretically, maybe.
no, I don't think that's the case at
I mean,
all.
it'd be a pretty shitty place to live, but it might happen.
I think that's a
it could happen.
crazy, insane idea.
Well, it's not going to happen anyway.
Well, yeah, because the world will collapse before
We'll
then.
probably kill
No,
ourselves.
it's not going to happen because the population is already leveling off.
I don't know about that, Piro. We've
Well,
talked
that's
about
what
that.
the UN numbers. You can still go
Yeah,
look it up.
that's
That's not what the World Health
He says
Organization.
The
11
UN.
million.
Are you sure about that?
Piro, we went through this, and you pulled it up, and it proved what I was saying, and that it doesn't. They don't predict it leveling off until like 2100.
About 14 billion people.
You can
Yeah,
unmute.
that's insane. 14
It was
billion.
11
Why is that
million,
insane?
and it was leveling off at 2050.
It's insane because we're already straining resources amidst things like climate change and all sorts of other environmental problems. So you want to put more people on the planet? I think that's crazy.
Unmute yourself at will, Vivian. You can unmute now.
Viv.
So the thing is, what I think
Probably
about
go
this
sec.
Vic's argument.
Okay.
Yeah, Vic's arguments to me, and I wonder if you guys think this is a fair summation or not, but it's a defense of ideas you're allowed to have when you have extremely low or no information, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
agree.
yeah, and then the second part is just that I don't think that Vic is memorizing the other people's point of view. I think I could for example, write a story, well written or not, where somebody with Vic's opinions was believably held those opinions, and they would convey that kind of opinion. And I don't think he's doing that. And I think it's an important thing politically. I'll just finish with this because I honestly think, just like when I was a kid and divorce was still just a new thing, that it might be okay and not embarrassing, countries might have to do that. I mean, we might need a divorce because I'm not doing it there pro-torture. You could shoot a guy because of the color of his jacket as long as there are people with that colored jacket that deserve to be shot. That's not the society I want to live in, period. It's not, I could tell. It's not like, hey, let's have a discussion. I'll figure out if I'm into that. I'm not into that. And so it's irreconcilable differences. And since they got the South with most of their kind of thinkers and we got the North with ours, I say split the motherfucker up.
Jeez.
Yeah, but you've also waffled on that opinion before with recognizing that the states are really purple. And it seems to me you just want to state that in an effort to say, well, ultimately they'll just come around to our way of thinking.
Yeah, no. My point about the states being purple is one reason why it's realistic. It's not like we're going to make a fascist dictatorship next to a communist, to a communist country. We're basically going to have the middler of the road Republicans get to take over, the grown-ups among the conservatives would take over, and it's just the fighting that allows these Trumps and everything to happen, or even the Ted Cruzes to happen. They'd have the same Bob Dole that I disagreed with 30 years ago, and we'd have Hillary Clinton, and slowly we might get more liberal people, but it'd be very gradual. So it's just a reason to do it. It's not like people would be
Well, yeah,
isolated.
that's what I'm saying. You're
Hold on. I'll say this though. We may not have this like north-south thing for long because sometimes Brandon gets really irritated with when a lot of non-objectivists come into the call, and he's like canceled 2 things. I think last week because of that. So we'll probably get them coming back in here.
We'll see.
Because
We give Brandon a hard time.
He really doesn't like it when a lot of non-objectivists show up. So
I imagine that most people are non-objectivists.
well.
That's only because it's really hard for humans to be totally objective.
I don't think you really.
No, objectivists are not objective.
Damaged. I don't think you really know what I mean. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the specific, the very specific thing that Ayn Rand was presenting with objectivism. It's hogwash.
You should explain what
It's a romantic theory anyway. I mean, it's just called objectivism because it's romanticism about rationality, but it's not about rationality itself.
Some of the premises are, you could go with, but when it starts getting into it leaps from premises to values. So that's where I used to be an Ayn Rand sort of fan for a little point in my life. It's been a long time ago, but when I really sort of drilled down further into it, I rejected it entirely.
Well, can I read a quote by Ayn Rand on objectivism, which you probably already know, but it says, "My philosophy in essence is the concept of a man as a heroic being, with his own happiness as the moral purpose of his life, with a productive achievement as his noblest activity, the reason as his only absolute. Objectivism is a philosophy of rational individualism." There you go.
Okay, so you don't think that's
contradicted herself in there?
You don't think that's just dripping with values and emotions?
Well, you have to, I understand Ayn Rand's history, and so from where she was coming from in her, the society at the time and what she went through to get to America, blah. I think that it was highly influenced everything she thought and wrote, and I think it's the most funniest thing.
I would agree
The most ironic thing is that she ended up impoverished on social assistance, which is coup d'etat.
Well, I think she contradicts herself. The true part is the part about it's about this heroic view of man. And I kind of like it. I like these industrialists. I can easily lose my activist grit and fall in love with I never liked Steve Jobs, but, Wozniak, the engineering type of this, which her characters generally are the engineers. So it's like, yeah, you meet a guy that really is honest to goodness, like some Reardon, where he's an honorable guy and he really cares about his employees and he's a lot of, then they are great people. But it's romantic version of really it's a novel. It's a formula for novels. It's not how the real world works.
But many people think that kind of philosophy is something that humans need to strive for, even though it may sound a bit kind of fucked up utopianism. But she also said a lot of things that were really nasty and ugly. So I don't know. Ayn Rand, I find, is a confusing quagmire.
I mean, I've heard most of her novels, I think, and I'm not an expert, but just from everything that I've read, I'm not a novel guy, so I don't know. But they seem like contrived nonsense. But
they're trashy novels. She wasn't a great writer. All right, she was not a great fictional writer.
Well, I was going to compliment her after I just trashed her novel writing, but I mean, when you get to like just some of her outside writings, that are, outside of her novel writing, I think that she had some interesting things to say, and I don't totally discount everything that she said. I mean, that's why I was kind of drawn towards her in the first. I was not drawn towards her because of her novels. You know, I was drawn towards her because of some of her philosophic principles and things that she presented, and ideas that she presented that were maybe controversial at the time. So, I'm not like totally bashing Ayn Rand. I just think that objectivism just it doesn't work overall. I would have to really pinpoint why and everything and just really drill down and get to it. I would have to review it and go back through it and everything, but that was the conclusion I formed.
My main disagreement, I realize I'm just coming in mid-conversation, but my main disagreement with Ayn Rand and objectivism is semantic. I don't agree with using the term axiom to refer to essentially subjective philosophical opinions. She's perfectly free to hold whatever opinions she did. I don't have any problem with her voicing her own opinions. I don't happen to agree with them. That's beside the point. I just think that talking about them as if they're mathematical principles, as if they're demonstrably certain, is not correct.
Right. Yeah, she says certain things are axioms, and she's just smuggling in all kinds of unqualified values and things of that nature.
I got cut off because I was going to walk outside here, but what I might be biased against her, but I think the thing that is totally legit about her not being objective is there's various subject matter and major what she thought about.
Breaking up.
And we're talking about, think about the movies back then, 50s and before, portrayed it accurately, the Native Americans and their savageness and everything, and that they didn't deserve the property. And how is that objective? If those people, because she'll say, oh well, they didn't know about writing deeds down, or they didn't have this idea. Well, we signed agreements with them on paper that we broke. So what about those ones? Those people that signed that kind of understood what the agreement was supposed to be. So I think that's obviously not objective. And then she admits that she's a romantic. She has a romantic view about the productive intellect of the human being. That's the grain of...
Well, what Ayn Rand was an aesthetic, she believed in an aesthetic renaissance, which, that's kind of shooting high and that's kind of fucked up, because that and capitalism, I don't know if that goes together. Aesthetic renaissance. But, an aesthetic renaissance might be nice, but it's also aesthetic renaissance would be based on privilege.
Well, indeed, the Italian Renaissance was based on privilege. And to a great degree, the aesthetic renaissance of, if we may call it that, of America during the 1950s under Bernays, who was a cousin of Sigmund Freud and adopted some of his principles for advertising purposes, could be seen, I think, in a similar way, except in this case it was a variety of different industries rather than just banking families or city-states that were funding the mass art, mass public art sort of movement in that way. So I don't think it's invalid to classify that as a renaissance of sorts. I'm not totally happy with that style of art, but it was a rebirth of popular artwork. So was Leninism, Leninist art as well.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And I do agree that mankind's civilization and the growth of it does depend on creativity, art, because that is how we That is how we work out futures. That's how we work out ideas. I mean, there wouldn't be theoretical physicists if we didn't have that kind of, you know, aesthetic sense of us in the universe. So I think that is important. So there's, I agree. She had points that were really relevant and still are, but she was like any other human being. She was prone to contradiction and some bad ideas, and I think her ego wouldn't let her transcend those bad ideas. I mean, she had a huge ego. That's what I think. But the fact that the whole libertarian movement has embraced her as some kind of goddess kind of makes me want to vomit. But
And also,
Well, to be fair, I don't think the entire libertarian movement has done that.
well, no, not the entire. That's true. You can't say absolutes, but
Of course, libertarian movement means a lot of different things, I suppose.
yeah, and talk to Noam Chomsky about it. He's libertarian is a really wide-ranging thing that started since the beginning of developing the United States. So
Right, I think he basically argues that the libertarian movement in the United States is kind of the polar opposite, perhaps, of what the actual what that should mean.
yeah, he does actually, and he's actually nailed people like Stefan Molyneux, and that was quite a great. Oh, he really nailed him. That was great.
Molyneux is such a joke.
He's an asshole.
Have you ever watched or listened to any of his podcasts?
Mm-hmm.
It is
I can't unsee it.
unbearable. I mean, all he does is ruin people's lives. That's what I've heard.
Oh, that's his whole defooing. Yeah. I mean, sometimes he gets a few subjects right. And
it's not only the defooing thing. Like, young men call up, with girl problems, and he's just totally telling them things to do that are just bad.
Because his wife's a psychologist. He thinks he's a psychologist because he studied philosophy. I mean, he's a mental case.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
I suspect, because he is an atheist at heart, I suspect he'd just like to see the whole world burn to ashes, and then he thinks that him and his libertarian buddies can step in and recreate the world in their own design, which is pretty delusional.
Well, he's an ANCAP. So
he's an anarcho-capitalist, yeah.
Yeah, so that's just an insane fantasy
as a
dreamland world point of view. Most libertarians, I don't think, are like that.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
No. And actually, a lot of libertarians have poo-pooed him anyway. So.
Well, I hope so.
I've come across some of his followers in my country. I've come across a few of his followers in my country. There's a very small movement called Freedom Ireland. I don't know if they still operate. They were immediately rejected from the wider anarchist movement because they're not real anarchists. But they were fans of Stefan Molyneux. But they didn't really read anybody else. They didn't look into Murray Rothbard or Ludwig von Mises or any of the other anarcho-capitalists.
Mary Rothbard, good person, yeah.
I don't know too much about him, to be entirely frank. I know that he was he attempted to establish anarcho-capitalism as sort of the American